A very good afternoon to you. Thank you for joining us here on Global Television live in Abuja, Nigeria's capital. You're welcome to Midday Discourse. I'm Agmofwegbe. Nigeria as a country is at a point where it needs all the help it can get to be able to get out of what it is today, whether it is in the economy, whether it is in infrastructure, or even leadership across the board. And as such, we now understand firsthand that all hands must be on deck to be able to fix this country. But all of the challenges in Nigeria have a history to them. Time will fail us to talk about them one at a time. However, we've seen so much of these issues play out in recent times, whether it's the removal of fuel subsidy or the issues around appointments of ministers by the present administration led by President Bola Tinubu, or it is about how we relate with other countries. The issues are enormous. But again, government continues to promise and then, of course, reassure that all of these issues will be resolved as quickly as possible. But then there is also the role of the media in setting agenda for government and those who have a responsibility to provide leadership, especially within the public space. Has the media been effective in playing that role, and how effective has it been for them? What contributions, in precise terms, have they made to help make Nigeria at least one step better on a daily basis? We're going to have that conversation very incisively this afternoon. I'm joined by Charles Ojugbana, a very reputable and renowned veteran broadcaster. Charles, it's a pleasure to have you.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
My pleasure.
On a personal note, I would say it's beyond pleasure. It's a privilege. Not only am I having a conversation with you, but we're doing that on live television.
Yes.
Once again, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
Left to me, I'd love to spend the whole time talking about sports-specific issues with you. But at this point, I want us to look at, you come with decades of experience under your belt as a broadcaster.
Yeah.
How would you describe the state of the media as an industry in Nigeria today? Given where you're coming from.
Yeah. Well, I think perhaps the right word to use would be that it's a very vibrant media that we have in Nigeria today compared to where we're coming from.
Right.
Gone are the days when we used to have virtually just one radio station known as Radio Nigeria, and perhaps one television station known as NTA, and everybody had to hook onto them for you to be able to get the news delivered to your doorstep. We have transited from the analog to the digital age, and part of the vibrancy we have in the media now, beyond the electronics, we also have it in the print, and then, more importantly, today we have the social media that has come on very strong. So for me, it's a transition from what used to be just a little tiny dot in the ocean to, something far much bigger and far much diverse. So I would like to use the word vibrant.
Right.
The media is now very vibrant. It comes with its ills and its good sides, but I believe that at the end of the day, we have to appraise the media from the point of view of, upholding those tenets for which they are supposed to be known, i.e., holding government to account and being able to, inform, educate, and entertain the public.
Right. So you talk about those tenets. We understand there are fundamental values that practitioners in the media space hold dear.
Yeah.
Incidentally, like you already alluded to, we've seen so much of evolution happen within the media space.
Yeah.
Do you think young broadcasters, those who are coming far behind your generation in the industry, are still holding on to those values today from what you see?
Unfortunately, I would say no. And my reasons are many, but let me just pick out one or two for you to see. In our time, you never had the privilege of handling the microphone until you've gone through a series of training and you have been found, worthy to be given the microphone. In my time, you cannot cross over because you are a print journalist, then next thing you transit to a broadcaster. No. even to move from radio to television was a big deal because these are serious issues. But today, what we see is a little alarming. Anybody who has had any stint, no matter how small, in journalism, turns around and becomes a presenter, turns around and becomes an analyst on TV and so on and so forth. And then you find a situation where people begin to criticize certain stations or certain individuals because inadvertently their training did not cover the area of not being self-opinionated on TV. You and I can have our personal views, but we don't bring them to bear on the viewers. We don't put it out, and that's the only thing they need to know. So I see that happening a lot in broadcasting today, and that's quite worrisome.
We're seeing so much of argument back and forth, debates, if you like, about whether or not there's still fairness, there's still balance, there's still thorough investigative journalism, as it had always been today in the media. All right, we're seeing ownership interference. Yes. We're seeing political interference, and then you now find a situation where media houses are tagged along the lines of partisanship. So you say this media house is of party A, this media house has sympathy for party B, and so on and so forth. So in the final analysis, the media has been embroiled in so much of controversy. In some cases they have even had to indict themselves on account of the kind of journalism, the brand of journalism that they practice. How much of damage has that done to the fabrics of the sector, the industry?
Yeah, quite a lot. Like I was saying, the media is supposed to be that neutral arbiter. You know, like a referee in a football game. You're not supposed to
take sides.
You might be a silent supporter of a team that you're referring, but you don't show it. You don't wear their jersey when you're.
That's right.
You know, so that's where we've had a problem. And like I was saying earlier on, people have overstepped their bounds. Mainly because they are not even aware. You know, we have a lot of crossover journalists, you know, from left to right, and that's where that happens. And when you see people trying to paint a particular media house in a color, that's because of what they are seeing. Now, the media should be neutral. The media should expose the points, bring out the facts, and allow the viewers to make up their mind what is right or what is wrong.
Let's talk about professional or ethical reporting, right? People have talked about how the media reports elements such as terrorism, for example, how that the media is not fair to the government, how the media is underreporting, or in some cases not reporting certain very salient issues, say rape, for instance, say child marriage, you know, and things like gender-based violence and so on and so forth. Is the media commended enough for the work that it does, or the media is underperforming altogether?
Well, that's a mixed bag because, like you said, even though you're a journalist or a broadcaster, there are ethics of the profession.
That's right.
There are do's and don'ts. I mean, if I was going out with you to cover an event and there was a ghastly motor accident somewhere and bodies were littered all over the place, and of course we called our cameraman to shoot, and then we did a report. It's unethical for us to come on air and show that quantum of human blood spilled on the floor, you know, or show maimed limbs and dead bodies, you know. It does not take away the fact that it did happen.
Right.
But what should be the ideal is, for instance, if we're going to take those shots, then maybe the ones that are a little bit gory, we try to blur them so that people don't quite see what it is. So it's not, media is not only when you bring out everything and throw onto the world. You see, that power to editorialize is with you, and that you have to know that there is, you know, a limit to which you cannot go. So the same thing also too with the issue of government. People can criticize government. I have nothing against that. But when you do it to the point where people can now say, oh, you belong to party A, like you said, or you're seen as just being party A, then you lose it, because when people want to tune to your station, they just, oh, am I ready for this people, you know. So, and that is where we begin to lose, you know, the value of good journalism. Good journalism must be neutral, must be interesting and entertaining for everybody, no matter your your background.
There's a trend we have seen in quite a couple of years now, say 2005, 2010, where you find money bags in politics now jumping into the media space,
Yeah.
and then of course setting up media houses, especially within the broadcast segment
Yeah.
of the industry. How much has that altered the practice of media in this country?
I would say it has, but not remarkably so. I'm aware that, without mentioning names, a few of our politically exposed, citizens have had to buy or own some media space on radio, television, and even in the print media. And that, like I said, has made the public to view those stations or those media houses as pro Mr. A or pro Party B, and it makes it difficult for people to appreciate the other good things those media houses do. So I know also that from the point of politics, when those people plunge into that kind of adventure, they have a selfish partisan, interest. So that at the end of the day, that they will have a good chunk of the media space. So that's what's been happening.
Let's talk about regulation now. We've seen the National Broadcasting Commission, that is the NBC,
Yes.
do a lot of work. I mean, come down hard on some media houses by way of sanctioning. In some cases, licenses had been revoked outright. Would you say, I mean, with your best judgment, that the media space is over-regulated, or there's some sort of bias in terms of how media houses are regulated across this country?
Yeah, I think from what we have seen in the past few years, it's clear that even in the situation where we had issues of ban and censorship or fines and things, it has come from the prism of politics. People have said, oh, because I said this against the government, that's why they're doing this to me. And when broadcaster B did something worse, nobody, blinked an eyelid. So yes, there's a high level of regulation, and even the regulatory bodies, like I said, ought to also be above board for them to be seen as being
Lead by
neutral.
example.
Exactly.
All right, so I'm going to talk to you about the coverage of the 2023 general election. That again has further deepened the controversy within the media space. What should we be learning practically about election coverage? Because in the months, leading to the election, we always see trainings specifically tailored towards election coverage, whether it's by the BBC or some other reputable international organizations coming back here to Nigeria to train professionals on the ground. Are those trainings finding impact in the way we practice? Because in the build-up to the election, during the election, and after the election, we continue to have this back and forth between media houses and politicians on account of our general election cycle.
Yes. Well, that is a factor of Nigerianness of our politicians. The political class, as we have seen over the years, has grown in desperation, has grown in their winner-takes-all attitude. They've grown in not broken any form of dissent or criticism. So that's what's been playing out. So no matter the trainings any journalist must have gone through internationally, when you come to Nigerian local politics, it's a different ballgame. It's a winner take all. It's almost like people say, it's too dirty to be touched. So, and it's difficult for you to go through it without staining yourself or getting that tar or being misconstrued as belonging to A party or B party. So what we have seen in Nigeria, like I said, has been driven by the desperation of the average Nigerian politician. In other climes, I'm not sure that's how they practice politics, So in the way the parties evolve, in their leadership, in their utterances, in their, everything about them, you see that element of, it's us or nobody else. So that creates a problem even for the media. because they get sucked in, and of course, you know that there's a lot of money that's been thrown around during the electoral cycle. So everybody gets sucked into it.
So let's talk about the Freedom of Information Act, I mean the FOI. When it was still in its embryonic states, many practitioners, especially the senior ones like yourself, had said it was most likely going to be a game changer. Has it changed the game yet?
I think yes, but maybe not as much as we would have wanted it to be. But we're beginning to see, you know, some movement in that direction. At least the last court case won by Serap is an example of what we want to see as the ideal society, where everybody is held to account. You know that the FOI Act has its do's and don'ts. For instance, you cannot inquire about things that have to do with national security or maybe things for defense.
That's some limitation.
Yes, yes. But in the area of holding our leaders to account, in the area of probity, in the area of expenditure, yes, we're beginning to see some movement. And I want to encourage all media houses to, you know, be a little bit more aggressive. We have to hold them to account. People can just come out and bandy sums of money, you know, in the air, and then we all just sit down and watch it. It has to be interrogated, and it's because that interrogation has been lacking over the years. That, for me, appears to be why people see Nigeria as a state that is not improving as it ought to, as a state that has so much resources but has been squandered, you know, overnight, as a state that's almost, some people say is hopeless or helpless. So we have to do more of those interrogations and hold our leaders to account. Right.
We are going to wrap up in 2 minutes, time constraint, but then it's a bit sad because, I mean, we should take the most advantage of your presence on the program. But I just want to ask you this, knowing that it won't be fair to not ask you a sports-related question.
Yes.
The NFF has been accused time and again of mismanaging, all right, sports in this country, all right, especially as it has to do with football. They're saying they are not growing the sports sector as it ought to be in terms of providing leadership, in terms of vision, in terms of right funding, in terms of transparency in the way that the NFF is funded. We have heard people say, come and account for this, come and account for that, and so on and so forth. Has the NFF always been that way, or it just got to, I mean, missed it at some point?
Well, it's a long journey, if you want to describe it as such. And then I want you to also know that the Nigerian Football Federation does not live in isolation.
That's right.
You have to also look at what happens to other sports. Why is it that cricket, rugby, hockey, swimming,
or tennis,
even our the events where we used to have comparative advantage, like wrestling, weightlifting, boxing, what has happened? You go to the Olympic Games now, Nigeria just goes to participate. You know, you're not saying that, oh, we're expecting 5 gold medals and you are sure that you get 4 or 3, because there appears to be this issue of putting square pegs in round holes. And you cannot give what you do not have. So that, for me, is what has bedeviled Nigerian sports till date. And football is not an example. It's not an exemption. I'll give you a typical example. Everybody knows that the football cycle worldwide starts in August and ends in May. But perhaps this year, if they carry out their plan, will be the very first time the Nigerian Football League will be aligned to what happens globally. And you ask yourself, does that take rocket science? When other players are on holidays, Nigerian players are, you know, playing the league. You also have to ask yourself, how come that the average Nigerian doesn't even get to know that we have a league, you know, in place in this country?
In the meantime, they are busy following leagues from other countries.
Exactly. You have 8, 10 matches of Nigerian Football League played in a day. For 1 week, people don't even know the result. You don't know who the top scorer is. You don't know how many points Team A needs to avoid relegation, and and then we've been having this chopping and changing attitude. Today is Super League. Next tomorrow it is special days. It's Nigeria has reached the stage where we must have some stability. We must have some structure that you can go to the bank with, and that
even beyond sports.
Oh yes, of course.
I can't thank you enough, Charles Sojugbena, respected veteran broadcaster, for coming to share insights with us on these very salient issues today. We hope we get a chance to break into a schedule once again and then just have some of these conversations with you. Thank you once again for coming. That's what we're living is everyone here on Midday Discourse. I'm Agmo Fuegbe. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure too.